and I have on a call here cybersecurity expert Dustin Fritz. Dustin, how's it going, man?
Great, good to be here. Glad to see you and have a chat.
Oh yeah, it's good to see you too. I really value friendship. We've been friends, I would say, for the latter 4 or 5 years. And um, Dustin, you're in California. Can you give us a little introduction of like who you are, where you are, what you do, um, and provide us a little bit of background?
Absolutely. I am in California, and I've been in cybersecurity for 24 plus years. And my journey started when I joined the U.S. Navy, and was able to join a team that was focused on cybersecurity. After I left the Navy, I basically went into my career as a consultant and eventually into management, managing infrastructures and businesses, cybersecurity, computer security, and eventually started a consulting firm, and have been providing cybersecurity consulting services to organizations, small, medium, and large, in various healthcare sectors, as well as in tech, and have really been enjoying the journey so far, and getting the chance to meet a lot of different organizations and understand their problems and how to help them solve those. But it's been exciting, and we're happy to talk more about cyber insurance with you, Trey. Exciting topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been in the business for, over 20 years and doing this with the Navy and whatnot. What are some highlights or milestones that you can share that aren't top secret that throughout your career, like with some of your milestones that you've accomplished so far?
Well, it's funny, you look back on your life, and you always say, you know what, a lot of these things are just right place, right time. When I joined the Navy, I was had an opportunity to be selected to be trained as an ethical hacker, and had a great opportunity to also be trained in all the technology, and tools and development of how to hack into networks, how to explore them, how to exfiltrate data, how to build tools to do that type of stuff, and eventually manage teams that did that. And that to me was a really great skill set to have, and I enjoyed what I did. Every day was something different. And when I look back on those opportunities, being the first group of people to be selected for that and trained for that was an awesome experience, because we did get a lot of training and knowledge through that military experience. Taking that going forward and entering my civilian life, where I got to work as the director of security operations at the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, which was a great experience. Being thrown at the wolves, if you will, 24/7 operations where you're managing, hackers trying to hack into the networks, or you're managing outbreaks of malware, was a great experience. And then being one of the first chief information security officers for a government in Northern California, it was also an opportunity that I thought was really a great accomplishment. And all these things lead up to being able to build a really good portfolio for myself on how to deal with various issues and organizations and technologies, and then opening up our cybersecurity practice to help companies deal with those things. But I'm fortunate that I had these opportunities, and I look forward to more that we find ourselves, the right place at the right time to help other organizations deal with some of these challenges.
Absolutely. And, you said it perfectly, being at the right place at the right time. And I'm sure some proactive actions are, part of what you do. Some trends that you're seeing today in cybersecurity space. What are you seeing that you could share with our community that you're seeing that folks that run businesses maybe out of their homes, a large business with hundreds of employees. What are they kind of seeing? Are they seeing the same things? Are they seeing different exposures? Like what's kind of what you're seeing in the cybersecurity space?
We are seeing a lot of ransomware attacks. We're seeing a lot of sophisticated uh, phishing attacks. We're seeing also a huge uptick in accidental and inadvertent uh, issues with the lack of training, folks that are managing the technology or the users that are using it. And we're seeing a lot of accidental issues where data is being breached or being disclosed simply because things were either not set up correctly or the folks weren't trained correctly on how to manage or perform those functions. So when we look back, we're also seeing artificial intelligence and AI enhance all of these spectrums of attack vectors.
Mhm.
So we're seeing AI being used in how to create phishing attacks, more sophisticated, a larger volume, inundating organizations. We're also seeing ransomware, then where there's AI being blended into the ransomware attacks. So it can morph and it can adopt depending on the target that it's going after, and be able to glean some AI efficiencies with those types of attacks. So across the board, we're seeing AI just enhance and proliferate some of these attack vectors even more than they have been before. And I think it's we're going to see an uptick in more vulnerabilities being discovered. We're going to see an uptick in more gaps being identified simply because as AI learns and as these models start to get more familiar with the common issues that they see in the technology stacks, it will be able to bring that information back to the attacker and they'll be able to parse it, ingest it, and develop even more sophisticated and successful packages for malware to deploy to the organization. So we're just seeing it just expand the scope and the depth and breadth of all the existing attack vectors. When you apply AI on top of it, it gets very, very challenging to decipher. Is this real? Is this an issue we need to worry about? You may have heard recently there have been even deep fake AI Zoom meetings where an accounting analyst was brought into a Zoom meeting and they look around the Zoom room and they see all their executives, their CFO, their CEO talking about a big transfer of money for an important event. And one of the, deep fake personalities is telling the account analyst, please transfer $25 million to this account number. We need to make this happen. It's urgent. And then the meeting ends. And what happens? They transfer the money, and the money goes to the attacker's bank account. So we're seeing more sophistication. We're seeing AI being leveraged in different ways. What the same outcome, which is impacts to businesses, and the training that we have for users has to start incorporating AI threats or AI enhanced threats because it's just going to get more challenging. But those are some of the trends that we're starting to see come to light here the last couple years and more specifically the last several months here in 2024.
Wow. I mean, this is stuff right out of science fiction. A few years ago, we wouldn't have thought of AI being a contributory facet in data breaches and ransomwares attacks. With all this AI kind of building up and it getting smarter day by day, hour by hour, what are some steps that companies can take to protect themselves from potential breaches? Or in this, you can use the example of the accountant, or just give us some general steps that we can take to keep ourselves safe.
I think one of the most important things to realize is there are 1,000 ways to solve a problem. What's more important is that the organization adopts a methodology, a framework that they can use in a crawl, walk, run type of enhancement of your maturity. Every company has a budget. Every company has a different structure, culture, if you will. Um, and every company is going to do things a little differently. What's important is that everybody's on the same page as to what are we going to do with security? How do we want to apply it in our daily lives as we work together in this organization? So adopting a very uh, comprehensive cybersecurity framework to help you start implementing the various controls and processes and policies to get you on that highway of enhancing your security posture. And over the years, you will get better, you'll mature, you'll make decisions about investing different things in your technology and your process and your people to help security. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is uh, find a framework that meets your industry that you're in, that meets your customers' needs, and started looking at it to figure out how can we adopt this holistically, but don't try to take a huge bite out of the apple. Start small, and then grow into it and mature over time. And if there are specific areas you need to mature quickly on, then focus on those. But know that there's a lot of inner laced requirements and controls and dependencies on everything you do. So finding a methodology, finding a security standard you can adopt that is within your industry that you're in and follows the typical norms for your business is probably the most important thing that I try to relate to organizations. And there's a lot out there. Some are more complex than others, but I'd recommend find one that meets your needs and start looking at it and start deciding, hey, how are we doing for security awareness and training? How are we doing for our endpoint encryption? How are we doing for protecting our employees when they're surfing the web? And all these topics are built into all these frameworks, one way or the other. So that's the best advice I can give because once you adopt a framework, then you can start developing a roadmap and you can decide what level of rigor and investment and time and energy you want to put in to those different pieces. But the good news is you started. The hardest part is to take the first step in this journey. But once you have and you committed to it and you have a vision and everybody's on board with that vision, together you can improve and you can decide along the way which areas you want to improve on quicker. And it gives you a great measuring stick to say, how well are we doing? So you have some feedback and you can make decisions based off of that feedback. But of course, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to security. There's a lot of different domains, technology, people, a lot of different things involved. But the best advice I can give is find an industry standard framework for security that applies to your business and your customers and what you do and what you produce, and start adopting it, start looking at it, and start building out that roadmap.
That's awesome. It seems like you have a general kind of framework when you're working with business and your clients. What are some kind of questions that you ask of your clients when you're assessing their cybersecurity risk?
Some of the questions that we ask are actually a lot more related to the business. When it comes to security, my experience is security is useless unless it's applied to enable the business to be successful. If your business is selling SaaS software, then the security we're going to be implementing is going to be to protect that business. and the people and the processes that underpin that business's capabilities. If you're in the business of selling books at a bookstore and you're a brick and mortar, there might be more emphasis on physical security, right? But the important part is we go in and we really want to understand the business. What does your business do? What does it produce? What customers do you work with? Do your customers have requirements for security? Do they want you to be at a certain standard? Do they make you commit to telling them about incidents that have occurred in a certain amount of time? Um, it's really about understanding the business. And once we understand the business, then we can understand your risk profile based off of what your processes are currently operating at. We can understand better how your technology risk applies to your business if we understand the type of business you're in. And a lot of these risks fall into technology risks, physical security risks, people risks. It's pretty clear how to deal with security once you understand the business that the organization's in, what you're selling, how you are generating revenue, and how to keep that revenue protected. And security is really ingrained in every aspect of the company. And I always tell people security is just not one team. It's just not that security team, or it's just not that IT team. Security is only successful if everybody in the company participates and contributes to the overall safe and healthy data transfers and protections that are in place, because everybody has to protect the data, everybody has to protect the technology. And as we all know, some of the biggest data breaches were caused because of the smallest mistakes that led to those data breaches. So we go in, we understand the business, and then we start looking at what security controls do you have in place to protect those business processes. And if you're doing, like I said, if you're a SaaS company, then we look at how your employees are protected when they're on the web, when they're working on the web, and your cloud infrastructure. If you're a brick and mortar company and you have a lot of stores throughout the region, then we look at how do you generate your revenue? Well, your revenue comes into those stores, and the stores need to have orders pre-filled, and the supply chain is critical when you have brick and mortar locations. So we look at your supply chain risk. Do you have critical vendors? If you lost a vendor, would your business be able to survive in a day or two? And do you use technology to communicate with those vendors? And so we look at those things, and we look at the underpinning technology and people and process risks associated with that business. And that's what makes us a little different. We are not going to go and tell you to buy, expensive security tools. That's not the point of the conversation. The point of the conversation is what is your risk? And everybody has a different risk profile and a different risk appetite. And it's okay to accept and manage risk. We do every day in our lives, but to translate that into cybersecurity is to understand the underlying business, and then you can really get down to brass tacks of, okay, what do we want to protect and what thresholds are we willing to accept risk? And at what point is just too much risk to accept? And let's spend money, energy, and time on managing those risks to bring that down to a manageable level.
And you brought up a few good points here, and you seem to take a proactive approach when uh, engaging with a client for the first time, and really getting into the details of their business, how it operates, and what risks they're exposed to. Um, in that onboarding process and implementing your strategy, um, and people assuming their own risk, or they want to transfer risk to somebody else in the event of a data breach. So what in your position are you able to, do you recommend people assume their own risk, transfer their own risk? Is it really come down to the business? Like, how does that kind of conversation go when you're presenting a solution?
At the end of the day, we always communicate with people to the degree that every risk needs to be treated. There's a lot of different ways to treat risk. One of the most successful ways is to transfer that risk. And you start to understand that when you look at the liability, you look at the cost to managing that risk on your own. And you can think of it as simple as some of the challenges and catastrophes we had recently with Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. When you look at some of these homes, and my heart goes out to those folks who've had some floods and had their homes destroyed. And in a lot of cases, people's lives were lost, which is terrible. But you look at this and you ask yourself, if you have a home and you know that there's a high risk of a flood event, of a storm, hurricane, what have you, the thing you ask yourself is, do I have enough money in the bank to cover my own losses? And do I want to have enough money in the bank? And if you decide yes, you do, that's great. You are basically your own insurance company. You're insuring your own risks. And that's okay. That's your personal choice. If you decide, no, I'd rather transfer this risk to another entity through a policy, I'm going to pay the entity a certain amount of money within my budget to be able to transfer that risk so they can manage it. And that's how you're treating the risk. So we always go into the conversation with, let's talk about a risk treatment plan. And sometimes it's, we accept the risk, sometimes we want to mitigate it, sometimes we want to totally avoid it, and in some cases we want to transfer it. When we're looking at organizations that look at cyber, we really ask them to understand, what is the real risk here? How much is it going to cost for you to deal with this risk if it manifests, such as a ransomware attack, a data breach, things like that, that do incur a lot of costs in your people's time to investigate. You have to hire forensics investigators, especially if you're a regulated organization and you have certain commitments on that front with your customers. Then you have to bring your technology back online. You have to notify a bunch of people, and you may even get lawsuits as a result of this. When you look at this, there's a lot of risk analysis that has to occur for you to understand what is the actual monetary value of these issues. What am I going to lose? And do I have enough capital to cover these losses? Do I want to insure this myself? And if the answer is no, then that's okay. Here are different products that can supplement that, and you can transfer that risk over. But the important part that I always talk to people about is you need to make sure that you're not buying a cyber security insurance policy that is only going to cover a fraction of what you need covered. So you need to make sure that you're open, you're honest, and you're transparent with your insurance provider so they are having the appropriate coverage for the loss event that you are most concerned about. And that's the important part is it's the process. You have to go through that process so the insurance organization has the right data to be able to give you the right coverage limits and loss events in the contract. And that's where there's a lot of flexibility. You can have some basics and cover your basic stuff, but if you have a business that is prone to very specific cybersecurity issues, and it's just a matter of fact that it does occur, even if you spend all the money in the world, you still are not going to be 100% secure all the time. Things do happen that are outside of our control. You want to transfer some of those risks potentially. And that's where you got to work with somebody
Mhm.
who can help you get the right coverage to address those types of loss events. So yes, I think there is a place for cybersecurity insurance, and I think it's a very powerful capability that everybody needs to really consider adopting and understanding how does this fit into our overall protection strategy. There's going to be a lot of stuff you manage in-house, but there are going to be some key things that you want to consider for transferring that risk to somebody who can help you in those events. Just like when people buy flood insurance, wind and hail insurance, all these things, they're there for a purpose. And if you're in an area, if you're in business where these things are very common, then you should really highly consider transferring some of those risks over.
That sounds like, a conversation that I have with a lot of businesses every day as well. And transferring risk, is super important to business continuity, its ability to stay in business in the event of a data breach. I know our time is kind of running a little slim now, but if you could just give us one example or some steps that a business can do in the event of a data breach, what can they do to alert their consumers, their clients, what are some things that they can do in the event of a data breach?
Well, we always recommend when you're dealing with these issues is to understand what your commitments are. Do you need to inform your customers? And if you do, is there a timeline that you've committed to in your customers' contracts or your terms and conditions? Um, have the right people on speed dial, have your insurance provider on speed dial, have your attorneys on speed dial, have your leadership team on speed dial. Make sure you have these people's points of contact, you know how to get a hold of them, and you know how to execute and initiate various coverages in your insurance policy if you have those. That's the most important thing is being able to know who to contact in these events because every minute, every hour, every day counts when you start to deal with these issues and understanding if you're in a regular, have regulatory requirements, if you have, industry associations or organizations that you've committed to also following certain breach notification rules on, you have to make sure that you know what those are and you're prepared to deal with those. But having that list of information to be able to contact folks is important. And validating that these issues are actually reportable. In a lot of cases, people are so concerned about uh, security incidents, they lose the sight that you may have had a security incident, but were any records breached? And being able to take the time, analyze that, if you need to, hire out forensics investigator, have them come in to validate exactly what was taken, and that will help you scope out who you need to inform, what type of breach notification rules you need to follow, and then at that point, you're keeping everybody informed of what's going on and what the resolution is, because that's important, especially when you're looking at your coverages for insurance and you're going to be putting in claims on very specific events. Having that information is going to be critical so that you do get your coverage and you do get those claims approved and those payouts executed appropriately for the issues that you have at hand. But those are some, important things that we found over the years that some folks just forget to take a little time ahead to compile that information so they know who to reach out to in the event those issues do arise.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dustin, for your time. You mentioned someone being on speed dial in the event of an event. For anyone that is watching, and they want you on speed dial, is there a good way to contact you if there's any questions or a moment in time where someone needs a security expert like yourself?
Yes, you guys can reach us at troncore.com, TRONCORE.com, and on there you can reach out to us directly. We'll be happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dustin. I appreciate your time and really appreciate your flexibility and talking with me today. Looking forward to our next conversation and educating folks about cybersecurity, posture awareness, and really appreciate your time. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you, Trey. It's been a pleasure. Looking forward to our next chat.
Absolutely. Same here. We'll see ya.
All right. Take care.